Hello, and welcome to the TrailManners podcast. I'm your host, Eric Manning, coming to you from the beautiful trails in Ogden, Utah, but connecting you to wherever trail, ultra, and mountain running takes us. We'll bring trail running to life with amazing athletes, discuss the latest topics, epic journeys, and get you stoked for your next trail adventure. We're sharing the moments that make life special, because even a rough day on the trail beats a good day indoors, and nothing beats time spent with good friends and great stories. Catch us here weekly for your dose of dirt, vert, and good vibes. So now it's time to top off your water, grab some cheese curds, and join us for this week's podcast, where we take you deep into the heart of our sport. It's go time. Hello and welcome to episode number 331 of the TrailManners podcast. The TrailManners podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at TrailManners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at TrailManners. And don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate us on iTunes. TrailManners would really appreciate any donation via our website at TrailManners.com, and please remember to share us with your friends. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the TrailManners podcast. We're back with another RunCation episode. Launch date 2/27/24. So that is February 27th, 2024. And where's this RunCation? It is in Grand Junction, Colorado. We just got back from a beautiful, beautiful President's Day weekend in Grand Junction. Wow, it was pretty spectacular. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off first. The beer of the week. Now, the beer of the week is a jumbo mamba jamba big one. So when we were down in Grand Junction, we went to Ramblebine. That's Ramblebine, B-I-N-E, all one word, brewing company in Grand Junction. And as I like to do when I go out of town, is I ordered a little flight of the different IPAs, and oh my gosh, this one immediately jumped to a top 5 for me. Immediately. It's the Habitual Sin IPA. I actually brought home a growler, a can growler. It's got to be 106 ounces or so. It's a ginormous. I usually feel like a giant because I have big old hands, but this thing makes me look tiny. And I'm going to crack it for you right here so you can hear it. This was from the tap in the growler, and that hurt my finger. Here we go. Here's the crack. Okay. So that crack is exactly like the taste. It's just crisp, super crisp beer. Like I said, top 5. If you are near Ramblebine or you ever see this stuff, if it's ever on a shelf, Habitual Sin is the real deal. Top 5. Once we get into the top 5, if you know, I don't really go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it's really hard. It's mood based, but you know, there's a bunch up there, and we'll have a show talking about that. But anyway, that's the beer of the week. Ramblebine, Habitual Sin, 7%. It's an IPA, West Coast style, I might add. So well played, West Coast. So now bring on my guest, my lovely, talented, beautiful wife. Sarah Manning is with me. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, that was quite the introduction.
You like that?
Thank you. Yeah.
So this is one of those episodes that I talked about early on we're going to start doing, and they're just RunCation. So where we like to go or where we go and kind of talk about that trip. And we're always looking for recommendations out there in the run world. We like to combine running, breweries, dog-friendly running, and some decent chow, right?
And friends, if we can.
Oh, my gosh. So, like, when she says friends, we're talking about we had the pleasure of running with Matt Ozanic. And Matt's been a fan or a friend of the show for as long as we can remember, since, I don't know, probably 2015. He was an OG, original, from Grand Junction. Him and Chris Pack at the time. I had the pleasure of meeting both of them the first time at the Bear 100 one year when Matt was running. Chris brought me beer. It was crazy, but we had the pleasure of going down, and we thought Chris was just, or Matt was just going to give us routes, right?
We weren't really sure if he'd be with us for all 3 days, which was really awesome.
Yeah. And he was.
And it was wonderful.
He literally took all that time, and we're going to kind of go over that and, Grand Junction. But I guess first off is the why, right? Like we talk about, why do we go to certain places? So why Grand Junction? In your eyes, why did we go to Grand Junction?
I went a year and a half or so ago, maybe 2 years. I can't remember, but it was super cool. Their trail system is amazing. And we like to go to Moab, and we were just looking for something different, and the weather there worked out. It's about the same distance. Got to wear shorts and sleeveless shirts. So
just a beautiful place.
It's beautiful. It's a hidden gem. So
and I've driven through Grand Junction a lot, especially when I'm headed, when I've gone down to like Hard Rock and the San Juans, you kind of go through Grand Junction. The weather is one, right? We wanted to get out of the Utah weather, find some dirt. More than we have.
And warmer temperatures.
And a little warmer temperatures. Obviously trails.
Right.
There's an abundance of trails down there. I mean, I would like to think we might have hit up a couple of those of the three with all trails, right? If it wasn't for Matt, but the fact that Matt was there.
We got to see the
just
extra.
A bonus, the extra, and we'll talk about that. Location, the distance, drive time.
Again, dog friendly.
Yep. Drive time was what?
5-ish hours?
Maybe 5 hours.
And only half a tank of gas.
So my wife had just picked up a new ride. She used to drive an older Jeep. And Jeep, what year was your Jeep?
2010.
2010. She just picked up a 2024 Subaru Wilderness Crosstrek, loaded to the gills, drove down there, half a tank. Now, if we'd have taken the Jeep down, we'd have done what?
3 stops.
3 stops minimum. And we literally didn't stop the whole way down. So location, distance, that's one. And like Sarah mentioned, she was there. And I think just that bonus thing, like Sarah mentioned again, is just friends. Like Matt was there, right? So I've been teasing Matt and even Chris when he lived there that I was going to come down and run. I've been teasing him, I don't know, for like 72 years. And finally made the trek down. And oh my goodness, what a remarkable place to go run. We had everything we were looking for, right? Like what we just talked about. Like we usually go to Moab. Moab takes us 4 to 4.5 hours, so it's not much further than Moab, but it's definitely not as crowded. I think to me, I've run a lot of the Moab trails. This, to me, had a lot more stuff to it, right? Not just, what we're used to. I mean, it was everything.
I feel also like I love going to Moab and St. George too, but I feel like I have to work harder to plan a route that's more than 5 to 7 miles.
Yeah.
And you could go forever here without having to think too much about it.
Yeah. That's nice. Not thinking.
Yeah. I like to not think when I'm on vacation.
I like to not think all the time, really. It's getting more and more. And I mean, so many highlights to this trip, but I think one of the highlights was Chateau Ramada. We stayed at the
very swanky
hotel off the exit. It was a Ramada. It had some pretty solid reviews, but I didn't look close enough, and the reviews came from 1964, so that kind of put me in the back burner. It was adequate.
It was fine, and they had good breakfast.
Yeah, they had some options.
They had decent for what we needed. Yeah,
but I mean, this time of year, it's not like the peak season, so we got like a place for like
affordable.
$50 a night, and then they tack on the dog tax
extra.
But it was pretty solid. We had a sweet sliding glass door with a sticker of a palm tree on it, which goes hand in hand with Grand Junction, I'm assuming.
Didn't keep the dog from running into it though.
No, the dog Barrett did run right in, just like you see on Instagrams and the TikToks. He ran right into the door. Not sure what happened there. But Chateau Ramada. Probably won't stay there next time we go.
Probably not.
But again, and I think that's the other thing we talk about, these runcations, where you're staying. When you read reviews, just make sure you look at the dates. I didn't realize it was 1960 something. I was reading these really cool dates.
It was clean though.
It was pretty clean.
Yeah. It could. Yeah.
You're really sexing this place up.
I'm trying not to talk bad about anyone or think.
It was a chateau. We named it. But we did that. It was fantastic, and the food was on point. Some solid Subways down there.
Me.
My wife's a Subway holic. We're trying to get sponsored.
Vegetables.
Huh?
I like vegetables.
And they load you the vegetables. But Matt and his wonderful wife Char came out. What was it? Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And we went to Ramblebine, and that was super dog friendly. Such
Cool
a great
place.
atmosphere to go, and we really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun to get to meet her, and then it's also fun to go to places. Obviously, we try to take Barrett, but to see so many other people with their dogs there, it was just really cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about the routes now.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And again, we only hit 3. And if you ask me,
Not only. They were 3 solid routes.
No, but I'm just saying of all the routes
all of
there.
them? Okay.
I mean, we ran. So basically, we were there. We ran Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Monday morning. Came home. We got there Friday night. So we literally ran every day. Didn't take any naps. We watched a show. We'll talk about maybe.
Oh yeah.
And that was not very good.
It was really good.
It was good, but it wasn't fun. But so let's talk about our first route. So Saturday morning, we met up with Matt at the local dinosaur museum, which was fun because I knew he drove a Tacoma, and of all damn things, we pull into the parking lot. There's a Tacoma sitting there, and I'm like, that doesn't look like his from the pictures. But the guy
pulled right up next to
we
it.
pulled up right next to him. I got out of the car, looked up, I'm like, that's Grizzly Adams. That's
that is not Matt.
I saw him. He's wanted somewhere. So we waited. Matt showed up. We drove to the trailhead. We did Rattlesnake Arches. This is, I don't know if you haven't been to Grand Junction and only driven through the stuff we saw. I would have never thought we would see. Just as you're driving on the freeway, right? You look around. You're like, okay, you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, kind of deserty, high mountain desert, right? But yeah, so Rattlesnake Arches. So this route we did, it was 14 miles for us and about 3,000 feet of climb overall.
Right.
But we saw some incredible things.
Right.
The trails were gorgeous.
The trails were gorgeous. The weather was perfect. Once we got we didn't really see that many people because we started earlier. But we didn't really see anyone that whole time we were out there.
That's what I was about ready to mention. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, so quiet.
Super. And I kept bringing that up. It's like, it's so quiet here, except for the guy telling you how quiet it is.
And my dog wearing the bell.
Yeah, Santa Bell. But we saw Window Arch.
Yeah, he took us off on a little side trail, if you will, that we would not have known as there. It was, that was really cool.
So we went to Window Arch, checked that out.
Decided neither one of us were built to climb through it.
Yeah, I'm built more like a Tonka truck. I could have driven through. I could have knocked it over probably. And then we kind of went around the corner, and it just changed landscape again. Yeah,
there were multiple arches. And I felt like, and the kind of like, what do we call them? Like amphitheater looking things.
Yep.
Yeah. And the arches just kept flowing, kind of like you would picture a rattlesnake in a cartoon's back being up and down.
Well, and I thought it was pretty funny. So like I mentioned before, Matt has been a listener and a huge supporter of the TrailManners podcast for as long as I can remember. And he's like, telling my wife, he goes, I used to send in a lot of woody footies early on from this area, but every time I'd send it in, Eric and Joel would be like, oh, you're definitely not winning. Anything with rattlesnake in the name doesn't win. And I actually remembered that, which was pretty funny. So we had a good laugh out of that.
I did think it was interesting too. I always worry about, I guess, about the snakes. And so it was just interesting that he said that they have rattlesnakes, but they're green and skittish there. Or I think that's what he said. And they don't really bother you. But if you go other places, they're like aggressive. So apparently Grand Junction rattlesnakes are friendly.
Just
they're cuddly.
Chill. They go to Ramblebine on the weekends.
That's why they're cuddly.
We don't recommend cuddling. This is
Probably
a PSA.
Not. Yeah.
But cuddling not recommended.
He said they are few and far between there. He doesn't see them often, which is kind of cool.
Makes me happy. Same as people. Right? We didn't see anybody, really.
No.
But yeah, then we kind of like went around on the corner, and it was super amazing. We actually got to go through one of the arches before we kind of made the loop back. It was just a big loop.
Yeah. It was super cool because if we had done it, right, we probably would have just looked up and been like, wow, that's really cool, and then continued on the trail around. But we didn't know that you could go through it. And when we got there, Matt was like, do you guys want to go up and through it? And we were like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this.
Let's go. So,
And then we had some interesting moments as we were getting up. And I will say this because I'm comfortable with who I am, and it didn't happen. But we were trying to go up this arch, and Matt went up first, and then Sarah went up, and we had Barrett with us, the four-legged crash friend here.
German short hair pointer, though. He's very...
Oh, he's a trail runner times a billion.
He's much more adequate than any of us were.
And so it was his turn to go up this little thing. Like, we'll probably have to lift him a little bit. Because he wouldn't be able to climb this section, but he was parkouring up these things like we couldn't believe. Matt was pretty surprised. So I'm behind, and I'm getting ready to push Barrett up, and I felt uncomfortable for a minute. And when I got him up there, apparently I turned to look at my thumb. And
it was a very long pause.
It was a long pause with I thought I checked his oil. It freaked me right out. I didn't. We came to find out. But just for a moment, it was kind of the laugh of the trip for a while.
I still laugh.
Because I really thought something bad took place.
You guys were really close for a minute.
Yeah. So anyway, it was pretty funny. But then we got up to the top of the arch, and there's we go around, we could get on the arch, we got our photo, and then the trail takes off from there. So it's a legit thing,
wonderful.
but we would have probably not known about it.
Nope.
And then the trail itself, like I said, there was 3,000 feet of climbing. So you actually, a lot of the climbing was on the front end, and on the way back there was some climbing too, because you went down into some canyon-ish looking things, some dry river beds. But the trails were all dirt.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't run into ice, we didn't run into snow, and we were in T-shirts.
Yeah.
If it would have been Tuesday, I would have been Tube Top Tuesday.
We set our layers within the first half mile. It was pretty nice.
It was wonderful. Yeah. So that was the first day. Did you take anything else away from that route?
If you go there, do it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's about 14 miles. I'm sure it varies depending on things, but you'll be in that neck of the woods, and it's about 3,000 feet of climb overall. So actually pretty good little. And
it's a whole connected trail system there. So I don't think, from what I saw, you can't really go wrong in that area. Even if you didn't want to do that whole 14, you could just make something else up right there. Yeah. It's well marked.
Yeah. And that was Saturday.
Yeah.
And then that's late afternoon. We went and met them at Ramblebine with Matt and Char and had a great evening. And then the next morning, we decided we were going to go. Matt decided that we were totally on board, and Sarah had done a little bit of this. We went and did Little and Big Dominguez. And that morning we met at Matt's house. We're like, hey, he's like, just come, we'll drive together. It's about a 30-minute drive. We're like, cool, let's do it. We pull up to Matt's house, we park the car, we get out, and the first thing Matt says, hey, I got something for Barrett. A whole piece of cheese. Like, this dog was spoiled times 10.
Yeah, he's being reluctant to eat his dog food since we've been home.
Yeah, he has it. So we drove out to do Little and Big Dominguez. And so we decided that, when you go on a trip, when you go on a weekend runs and things like that, you always have what's your favorite part of the weekend? And we decided that we can't do that on this one. It's almost like, what was your favorite part of that day?
Yeah.
Right? So it's almost like 3 different bucket things.
Absolutely. And then there's multiple parts of each day too.
Oh yeah, because we did. We went and started off doing Little Dominguez. We did a side trail to Rambo's cabin, which again, who knows if we'd have known anything about this. So we went up Little Dominguez, and before we even got a couple miles in, my wife looks up on the hillside and says, "Hey, is that a sheep?" And we saw a bighorn sheep.
Bighorn sheep hanging out.
Just one. Just hanging out, chilling, just walking. So that was a big highlight. Bighorn sheep in the wild is pretty fun for us, especially where we live. We don't see a lot of those.
Not often.
Yeah. And then we went to this cabin. And to me, that cabin was unbelievable. It was built in the early 1900s. And
a sheep herder lived there for 70 years.
70 years. No electricity, no running water. And the location of this place was off the charts. It was by a big, huge rock, and then the cabin, and then a tree. The cabin was open, and probably to my amazement, which is sad, but my favorite part was there was so many tools and things still in the cabin. There's a rocking chair. There was an old stove, wood-burning stove.
Kerosene lamp.
Yeah, it's all kinds of cool things. And then to top it off, in a plastic sleeve, there was a photo of this individual that lived there, and then 2 pages of the quick little history. We took pictures of it. I didn't read it, but remarkable. Just tools lined up out on the side. No one's taking this stuff. There's some old farm equipment still in the field.
Wagon wheels. Yeah, I agree. The fact that was still there after 50 years. My math is bad right now, apparently. After 50 years, nobody's messed with any of that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So that was really fun. So we checked that out. Then we turned around, went back the way we came a little bit, and then headed up Big Dominguez Canyon, which, according to Matt, went much further than we went. We only went up, like I said, this was a 12-mile day, but he's like, yeah, it goes up here, and you can do this and this, and it goes to this other place. But again, I'm still ramping up, so my legs were going to take me too much further. Matt and Sarah probably could have kept going. But we did get to a really cool rock that had a lot of petroglyphs on it.
And there were several other, I mean, it was a whole area of petroglyphs, but that one was the main one.
And you followed this trail, and there was a creek that ran alongside it.
Oh, yeah.
And it had pools in it, little waterfalls.
Black granite waterfalls.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just the stuff you get to see. And I interpreted the petroglyph for Sarah and Matt. They weren't sure the story behind what was going on.
I still think your bear is a wolf, but that's fine.
I actually Googled it. That's how they drew them. They don't have wolves in that area, so it was a bear.
Okay.
So
I'll let you win that one.
Well, I mean, it was my story. Actually, it was theirs. I just interpreted it. And it was pretty good. So I posted that on the social medias, and that was pretty fun. But what a gorgeous route. And that one, again, 12 miles, 1,200 feet of vert. And then so when we turned around, it was basically all downhill.
Yeah, and it's so gradual. It didn't really feel like we were doing much.
It's more of a well, they didn't feel like they were doing much. I felt like I was doing an awful lot. I think my watch read 2,500 feet and yours read 1,200. I think I felt like I went up a lot higher.
You're just an overachiever some days.
I'm an oversweater is what I am. But that was super fun. Oh my gosh.
Well, even like the part, like when you start, so it's an out and back, and so you get to go over that cool, like there's a cool bridge because what river was that? The Colorado or the Green? I can't.
It wasn't either one of those.
Oh, okay. It was a big river.
Yeah, it had a lot of water in it.
Had a lot of water.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But you're like running in a canyon next to this river, and you get to cross a really cool old bridge. Yeah, it was really pretty.
It was super fun. So that was Saturday.
Right.
Day 2. Am I missing anything on that one?
Not on the run, but we did go hang out at downtown.
Yeah, we went downtown, walked through a bunch of shops. That was a lot of fun.
So dog friendly in Grand Junction.
Everywhere
all the stores.
You go. Super friendly. She'd walk in with a dog. Everybody, can I pet your dog? Can I pet your? I'm like, no one's asked to pet me yet. Why does a dog get all the love? I like to be pet. I'm a snuggle bunny. So, yeah, what a great town.
Yeah.
It really is.
Super cute.
They have great cottage cheese, too, at Safeway.
Yeah.
We've got cottage cheese from Safeway.
Lucerne brown.
Lucerne, yeah. So we like the Lucerne.
Super good.
So that was Saturday.
Yeah.
We did go to another brewery that night. Different vibe.
Yeah.
They were out of most of their IPAs. So we went back to Ramblebine.
Well, Eric dreamed about Habitual Sin.
Oh my gosh, all night.
He said, so we figured, while in Grand Junction.
It's so good. I'm drinking some right now, and it's so good. Yeah. So we're back now, as I mentioned, we didn't have time when we were down there. Just the layout of Chateau Ramada didn't have a great layout to set up the podcast gear, so we waited till we got back to do it. So that was Sunday, day 2. And then day 3, we got a late checkout, got up a little early, and we did Devil's Canyon Loop. And this loop is where we saw more people than, the first 2 days we basically saw nobody. The second day we saw a few people. There's some runners we saw. There's a couple individuals hiking, but I think that was about it. We only saw like 5 or 6 people on day 2.
And this is the same area, just a little southwest probably of Rattlesnake Arches. They've got several trailheads, and this was one of the first ones when you're pulling into that system.
Yeah, this is on your way to like Ouray and Telluride, that road there. But then day 3, we went to Devil's Canyon Loop, which was back over toward the trailhead of where we went to Rattlesnake Arches. Yeah. And this one was kind of a shorter day, kind of a shakeout. We had to get back on the road. So it was 7 miles and 1,000 feet of climb. I struggled mightily.
Rollers.
There was just lots of rollers, and I was
so
pretty cooked. I had a lot of Ramblebine running through me too. But I want to go back. I could do all 3 again, but I really want to go back and do that Devil's Canyon Loop just because I loved it. It was like just a bunch of rollers.
Yeah, we got to go to another cabin on that one.
That one, what was the name of that one, Sarah? You can say it.
Matt's wife named it. What was it? Stabbin' Cabin?
What is it? She named it the Stabbin' Cabin.
I love that. I thought it was funny.
We got some photos in there, but another cabin just literally in the middle of nowhere. Didn't have the stuff in it like the first one, like Rambo's cabin, and maybe didn't have the history behind it either, but it was just a cool little spot.
Well, I feel like this is the one you've been sharing all your fun photos from, right?
I've shared some from that, for sure. But that was fun, and then wrapped that up and went back to the chateau and cleaned up and hit the road.
Yeah,
and
home by 5.
Pretty easy place to go. So. Overall, I'm just saying, if you have an opportunity to go run down there, I personally, where we live and trying to get out of our elements in the winter, and a lot of historically, we've gone to St. George and Moab again, proximity, distance, heading south a bit to get out of this weather and maybe get on dirt.
Fewer people.
But I would definitely not go back to either one of those locations if Grand Junction had weather, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Just I think it's kind of maybe right now, maybe one of our favorite spots to go and do some adventuring.
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of off the beaten path a bit.
I know when I went before too, because we've gotten into mountain biking ish. We're not mountain bikers. We're more runners, but we do like to get on our bikes. They've also got some amazing mountain bike systems there too.
Fruta is its neighbor.
Yeah.
Yep, Fruta is known for it. And even the trails we went on, Rattlesnake Arches, no bikes allowed.
No bikes allowed.
But there's other trails.
Horses are.
Yeah, but there's other trails that it's a bike trails.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool how they do have that dialed in pretty well. Yeah. And Matt's like, yeah, there's usually not problems. You know, like people self-police, but they don't really have to.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun. So that was our RunCation. What else am I missing from that? Anything else besides paint peeling in the ceiling on the shower? Oh yeah, our show we watched. So Sarah talked me into watching. She doesn't watch shows on any level.
I've
unless
watched
it's
2
junk
movies.
TV.
Yeah, I like garbage TV, but I've only watched 2 movies in the last how many years? Probably 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was Society of the Snow, and it's on the Netflix.
Yeah, it's an award winner.
And we chilled.
Yeah.
It's an award-winning show. It is
3 hours
long.
2 nights
it's
for us.
subtitled.
No, we turned that off.
Yeah, it's like the old karate movies where
not
the
as bad as
mouths
that.
move, but they're not saying it. So it's in probably, where are they from? Uruguay?
Uruguay, yeah.
So they're speaking their native tongue.
Yeah.
And then they've got it where it's English
Voiced
coming
over.
out. So it was kind of hokey that way to me.
I don't really think it was too bad.
Those are always
it could have
that
been much
way.
worse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It didn't bother me.
But it's if you haven't seen it, read it about it first. Like watch the trailer or something. It's just about the Uruguayan rugby team that was flying over the Andes and the plane crashed.
Winter.
It was 2.5, 3 hours of eating people, and
it wasn't graphic though.
It wasn't at all, but it looked like chicken.
Some
nuggets.
people didn't eat the people.
Yeah, for a while.
And they died.
But anyway, it's not a bad show.
No,
I mean, it's one of those
good.
things where we're kind of in our head going, "Oh, I would have done this." And I'm thinking, okay, this was like what 1970-ish.
Yeah. I probably would not have watched it, except a couple of girls I run with have been telling me how amazing it is.
Well, I have to tell them to tell you to watch other shows, and I'll pay them. I'll say, hey, tell Sarah to watch this show so I can watch it with her. But it's not for me, it wasn't bad. I wasn't sure if I was going to watch the whole thing. Obviously, we broke it up into 2 nights, sitting on the king-size bed at Chateau Ramada.
I feel like you need to roll your R.
It's about it. Ramada.
Yeah.
That was pretty not bad.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm a good roller. Yeah, it wasn't bad, right? I know some people probably really like it. Some people probably don't like it at all.
I thought it was really good.
The only thing that bothered me is now you're like, I don't want to fly.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm not flying over mountains in the winter. Although if I do, I'm actually my bag that's my carry-on, I'm going to strategically place certain things in there in case that were to happen. Then I will make sure I have more things with me.
Well, the good news for you is most of the flights we go on aren't from like a post-World War II airplane, so that's going to be beneficial.
It's helpful, but nothing's guaranteed.
Well, yeah, Wiz, I'm not going to fly on an old plane across anything, so it's I'll guarantee it right here on this show.
Okay.
But anyway, it does make you think, like when you're on your road, like, man, what would I have done?
Now I'm thinking about flying to Hawaii, though, what we need for if we crash in the ocean.
Well, we're just going to, you would die there.
Oh.
I mean,
really?
Oh yeah, man, it's like hitting concrete. Yeah, we're not. That's a different show. Okay. We'll talk about that.
Society
later.
of the Water.
Yes, Society of the Aquaman. But yeah, Grand Junction, can't give it enough out of places.
Yeah.
It's just super, super good to go. But we're always looking for new places to go. We like proximity most of the time, but we're not afraid to travel, especially now she's got a car that can drive forever.
Yeah.
I've got my Outback, but obviously she does get better gas mileage and it's newer, so we'll drive that. But we're always looking for fun places to go for weekend running. Just some great RunCation. So if you have some, shoot them our way. We'd love to hear about them. And if we come to that area, and if you live there, maybe we'll hit you up for some guided tours because Matt set the bar pretty high, though. So anyway, that was our weekend. Yeah. We got some great pictures with the Woody Footy flag on the arch, which was fun. But yeah, anything else to add about that RunCation?
Can't wait to go back.
I can't either. I always, even this weekend when I was running back here, I'm like, gosh, dang it.
I do love it here though too.
I do too, but we don't have as much open trail right now either. Still a lot of snow and ice, even though the temperature is pretty good. So anyway, let's get into the next phase of the show. So this is, again, we have a guest on the show, and we have some Ask TrailManners questions. So you're going to be part of these. You don't know what they are. No. I barely know what they are, but every week we post on Facebook and Instagram. If you have a question, Ask TrailManners, post it there, email us. We'll answer on the podcast. And today we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they come from all over the place, which is kind of fun. Well, maybe a couple from California, got Utah. Let's start with the first one. This is from Heidi Waddups.
Ooh,
question from Heidi. She's been on the show, and she actually just ran Rufa Running Up for Air, set the course record in 24 hours. She summited Malin's Peak 13 times.
13 times, 78 miles. 32,500 feet of climbing in less than 24 hours.
Unbelievable.
She is an animal.
Huge shout out to Heidi. It's pretty remarkable, to be honest with you. But her question is, if you had to choose a beer that's not an IPA or double IPA, what would you pick? Heidi. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Because I do play a lot in the IPA world.
Yeah.
But I think about the only other thing I truly have is when summer hits. I kind of play around a little bit with El Loco. It's a lime and salt beer. It's like a Mexican lager.
Yeah.
That's super good in the summertime. Also, when it's really hot, I buy some Coronitas, some baby Coronas, and act like a giant because they're so small in my hand, which is totally different than the can I've got in front of me today. But yeah, I think a good Mexican lager when it's hot with some lime and salt, I think is probably the only beers I really have other than IPAs.
Yeah.
I can't think of the last time I had a non-IPA beer on purpose.
Yeah.
And I'd say a good Mexican lager when it's hot. I couldn't have one in the summer. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What about you?
As much as I love the double IPAs and the IPAs, I do like, even though it's not often, I really like a dark stout, not super chocolatey in the cold winter. I think those are yummy.
Something heavier.
Yeah. I do like red ales. I don't have them as often, but I do really like red ale.
Yeah.
And then I'm a sucker for a good sour also.
But one.
Just
You
just
can't
one.
have more than one sour.
No. But yeah, I do like, and I agree with you. Hot weather, or Mexican food restaurant, a Mexican lager is always a good one.
A bucket of Coronas, please.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Heidi, thanks for the question.
That's a good one, Heidi.
You kind of got me off my game. The next one, this is a good one, and I'd like some listeners to chime in on this one too for Jeff. Jeff says, how best to keep knees from hurting after a 5 or 6 miles run? It's difficult for me to enter trail races because of this. Now, I'm not a doctor, and this is a tricky one because there's so many variables. And I've kind of asked a few people this question because we've had this one for a couple weeks. A lot of it just depends on you, I think, in what's going on with your knees, right?
Yeah.
Is it something where there's not a lot of cartilage anymore? So it gets to be bone on bone. I'll tell you the one thing I've done, because I grew up soccer my whole life. My knees apparently are going to fall apart someday, but I try to run a lot. I take the glucosamine chondroitin supplements. I take Halo right now from First Endurance. It's not cheap. You got to give plasma to get it feels like, but it's helped my joints a ton. I know that helps a lot. I think, again, for me, it is repetition to get on them. There are some strengthening muscles around the knee. I did talk to somebody very good in this field, and that's a big thing is there's some specific muscles around the knees that if you strengthen help with that type of thing. But realistically, it's almost like what's going on with the knee. I mean, if it's a bad, bone on bone without cartilage, there's not a whole lot you can do. As far as that goes. So I'd almost recommend saying, hey, maybe get them looked at or talk to somebody. And if you do, I've always recommended, for as long as I can think of, because it's helped me so much, is if you can, talk to a doctor with a background in endurance sports. And that doesn't mean 100 milers or anything, but people that are active. Because I know when I had an Achilles problem, I went around to different physicians, and they were like, oh, you need surgery, you need, cortisone shots, you need this, that. And I didn't want to. I finally found a doctor that was a runner, and he's like, oh, yeah, let's just do this and this. And 2 weeks later, I was fine. So I think that's a good one. So that's a tough one. Do you have any recommendations?
I think your things are long-term and definitely important to like figure out why it's happening. And then like the conjoint and stuff, that's a long-term. I think short-term Band-Aid, but it makes you feel better. That like magic stuff or like some of the icy hot balms.
Magic stuff.
That stuff that I.
Oh, it's like a
icy hot, but it's just all
thing.
Natural.
Yeah.
But I think those for achy stuff, it helps. That feels so good.
Yeah.
I've done even on my knees before. You get the patches that are like for your back, so they're big, and you just stick that on there and wrap it around your knee. It feels really good. So it's a Band-Aid, but it does feel better.
Yeah, but I think finding that root, if you can, is important. Right?
Obviously, yeah.
So that's a great question, Jeff. And like I said, I'm no medical doctor. I don't have that background, but I did ask a few people in that realm, not necessarily physicians, but people in the physio world about that, and that was some of the things they mentioned. But again, ultimately, it might be worth seeing somebody. And then if it's after 5 or 6 miles, and you mentioned it's hard to enter trail races. I don't know, maybe if there's shorter distance trail races, maybe to do that if that's something you want to do. But it's a great question though. But again, if anybody's listening, wants to chime in, maybe has some help from advice for Jeff, please go ahead and do so or shoot it my way.
Also shoes. It might be just shoes.
Yeah, could be a shoe thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot. That's why I say there's just a lot of variables. I'm struggling with some stuff right now. It's driving me nuts. I got hip driving me crazy. A lot of pain, everything else, but then it'll go away. So, and I same thing. I probably should see somebody if I really want to get to the bottom of it. All right, next up. Gabriel from California, listener. All right, here we go. So, are you starting to ramp up running volume? I know how that feels. I've been injured, so riding the trainer 4 to 5 times a week for 8 or 9 hours is rough. Now, first of all, kudos to you if
that's
you're
a long time. Nice job
on the trainer for that many hours. That's
mentally.
Mentally, I would struggle with it. Am I starting to ramp up? Yes. That was kind of one of the keys to last weekend's 3 days of running. 14, 12, 7 with some vert was to kind of start that way. This week with some work things didn't go how I according. But yeah, I'm starting to ramp up. Got Gorge Waterfall in April that I'm really looking forward to. It's a 50K and then other things through the year. And for me, it is difficult sometimes to ramp up in the winter just because, like I've mentioned, we just have so much snow and ice on the trails. And that kind of throws my body out of whack. So I stay on the dirt. And right now our best dirt loop is short. And so it's like doing a continuous loop. So last weekend was a big, what do you call that?
Boost.
It was a big it helped me mentally, right? It's like, okay, I didn't feel too bad any of the days, too worked. I think by the end of the weekend, I was a little cooked. But yeah, definitely starting to ramp up. And being injured, I hope you heal quickly because riding the trainer for 4 to 5 times a week for 8 or 9 hours, my undercarriage hurts talking about it, really. I'm sitting on a wooden stool right now, and I'm feeling it.
I can't even run 3 miles on a treadmill without having to get off and walk around or something.
So that's pretty awesome that you're able to do that. But a good question, a good part of that question, though, is I just went and got my gravel bike tuned up a couple of days ago. And so I'll start riding that again. And that absolutely has helped a lot with my knees, my hips, some mobility. So I enjoy riding my gravel bike quite a bit, even though it's not full, real crushing it gravel on my gravel bike. There's some paved stuff, but that always feels good for some cross training and loosening. Last question from Missy Jackson from California. First of all, seeing what your husband's done the last couple of weeks, pretty crazy. So kudos to him. That's pretty awesome. Your question, Missy, is something I don't even feel good about answering and I'll tell you, here's the question so you'll understand why. If one were to travel to Utah, what top 2 trails said person shouldn't miss out on?
Oh.
So she said Utah, top 2 trails, and I'm thinking to myself,
Fairyland.
I'm thinking, okay, this is exactly like asking the question, which of your daughters is your favorite? Because I have 2.
Fairyland.
Fairyland daughter.
Yeah.
Well, so that's a tough question. Which one of my daughters is my favorite? Well, that's an easy answer. My favorite daughter.
You have 2 daughters. She asked for 2. You have 2 daughters.
Oh, Sarah interrupted me, so I couldn't. Sarah interrupted me, so I hope you heard which one I said because I said which one's my favorite. No, but top 2 trails in Utah, this is so subjective. I'm going to say 2, and people in Utah are like, oh man, no, they got to do this one, this one, this one. So what I'm going to do is say 2 trails that I enjoy in Utah, and then I'm going to do 2 trails I like in my neck of the woods.
There you go.
Because I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Right? Because Utah's
massive.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
I think Sarah nailed one because we just got done talking about it on our trip, is Fairyland Trail in Bryce Canyon National Park. Oh my gosh. It's so fun. It's just joyful. And the name kind of tells it all. It really is like fairyland. If you were a fairy, you'd live there. If you were a little gnome, you'd live there. I mean, it's just beautiful. Bryce Canyon National Park is gorgeous. So I definitely would say that. That's one of my favorite trails in Utah personally. Trail number 2 in the state of Utah gets to be a little trickier because it's long, is the Zion Traverse. And the reason I picked the Zion Traverse is because I think it's 30 plus miles depending on how far you go, but you go through such unique landscapes, like completely different. 1 minute you feel like you're in the Jurassic Park movie, legit, and then next minute you are in rocky canyons, the next minute you're in pinyons and creeks. So that would be 2, and I'm picking that as my Utah because I'm saving the other 2 for my neck of the woods, and that's still even harder. So do you have another one in Utah besides Fairyland?
No, I kind of think it's like your beer. Once you hit that top 5, it depends on your mood.
Mood, distance,
yeah.
What you're looking for.
I'm sitting here like in my head thinking of all the different places, and yeah, Fairyland is definitely up there, but I can't think of a second absolute favorite. All of them.
Well, and I've done the Highline Trail through the Uintas, like 80 miles, but that's different.
Anything in the Uintas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was mine for Utah, but now I'm getting my neck of the woods, and it gets tricky because, again, as Sarah mentioned, so many go-tos and so many favorites, but I will probably put Ben Lomond on there just because I think the reward when you get up there is phenomenal.
From which direction?
I would start at the Divide, and maybe if you even there, go down towards
over?
And you get over to Willard Peak. But that to me is, I don't know, probably one of my favorites in this area. And then depends on the proximity, but Timpanogos, Mount Timpanogos.
Yeah, I was thinking Utah for that one. That one was in my head for
that's
Utah.
not too far from us here in Ogden. But Mount Timpanogos is phenomenal. But then you also have like Pfefferhorn. You've got Lake Blanche down there. You got the Cottonwood Canyon area that has a lot of gorgeous trails. But we're not even talking about like Park City area, right. Heber City. Logan has some great stuff on the Bear 100 course. So that's a tough one. I think it would be more like if we knew where you were going in Utah. Like, hey, Eric, this said person I know is coming to this location in Utah. That would be easier. Because like Fairyland for us is 4.5 hours from here, right? So it's in Utah, not something we're gonna do tomorrow, right? So that's why that's so tough. Because and again, my job where I'm the executive director of Trails Foundation, it's hard to pick because I feel like I'm cheating on so many trails, because you got Icebox, it's super fun at certain times. That loop up there, where we got married on the bridge up there. Some Snow Basin trails are great. Lewis Peak doesn't have it's not like great trails, but they're fun. If you come up from Windsurfer,
it's wonderful. Yeah.
So I mean, you hear about Malin's no matter where you go. That's kind of
Malin's is awesome.
That's kind of the stickler here in the area. But Missy, that's a great question. And I'd venture to say people listening from my area have named like 7 or 8 that I haven't even mentioned, to be honest with you, because there are so many. But I wouldn't say like the Rail Trail.
I wouldn't even say Mount Ogden if we're being serious.
Oh, I
that
wouldn't
one
either.
beats me up.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
But Snow Basin side's pretty fun. So anyway, I hope that helps answer questions. Am I missing any? Like even if you had to give her a couple more that aren't top 2, what are a couple of your favorite?
Ogden. I agree with you. Probably been Lowman around here, and then I actually prefer. I love Sardine. Sardine is like a go-to
loop
for me.
Yeah, that's a good one too. You get up in there. So anyway, those are the 4 Ask TrailManners questions. So thanks for sending those over. Really appreciate it. Love the people. And I got some reviews coming in lately of the podcast, so I appreciate that. Those are always fun to read, especially when they're nice, like they have been. So thank you so much on that. We do have some good shows coming up for you. We have one that we'll talk about later on coming up about some events and different things like that. But again, thank you so much for the Ask TrailManners stuff. Sarah, thanks for joining me again. Number one, on a vacation. Number two, we're in our place, so I'm glad you're here with me. Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah.
This is my third podcast with you. You finally invited me on, and now you're stuck.
It's like you said yes. So yeah, thanks again. Again, don't forget TrailManners merchandise. We have some brand new hats. There's going to be links in the notes for there. We got a donate button. There's also discounts for Path Projects, which has a brand new line of stuff coming out here in the next week or two. So keep your eyes peeled there. They got some great stuff. Gnarly Nutrition discount, Squirrel's Nut Butter discount. So little things there for you. And again, if you have time, iTunes, Facebook, leave some reviews. Topics, more Ask TrailManners questions. Don't forget we have our TrailManners flags that you can take with you on vacation, some Woody Footies to get some good stuff out of that. But as always, thanks for listening to the TrailManners podcast. This is episode number 331. It's a RunCation episode. My name's Eric Manning, and we are out. Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. I'd like to thank my beautiful wife, Sarah Manning, for joining me today, and a special thanks to Mr. Matt Ozanic for being the best tour guide money can't buy. I also want to encourage everyone to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by the website at TrailManners.com. There you can click the donate button or check out our store page for some cool TrailManners gear, and both donations and purchases sure help the show. And you can always hit us up on the contact page or email me at manners@trailmanners.com. Let me know what you'd like to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. And don't forget to share us with your friends. And if you could take just a minute to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating or review on iTunes or Facebook, I'd greatly appreciate that. Don't worry, though, we have all the links in the show notes. Until next time, this is Eric Manning, still reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.